This is the Construction Insiders Podcast. I'm Jessica Busch, bringing you the newest trends and strategies in construction, essential to anyone in the industry. Welcome to the Construction Insiders Podcast, where we dive deep into the forces reshaping how we build. I'm your host, Jessica Busch, and today we're tackling one of the most transformative topics in our industry, artificial intelligence and technology enablement. In this episode,
now, the value of data is much clearer than it was before.
Almost always, I'm able to spend less time searching for information and more time applying that information and analysis and expertise.
We no longer have this group that are coming into the industry that have never used a tablet before. They've never used a mobile device.
There isn't yet a button push that I'm aware of that replaces key workflows and key expertise in what we do.
There is, we just haven't told you yet.
Okay.
We didn't want you to get upset.
We're going to talk about that after.
the construction industry is at a pivotal moment. We're seeing fundamental shifts in how projects are delivered, how teams collaborate, and how data is transforming these reactive to proactive approaches. The firms that are truly embracing these changes, they aren't just keeping pace. They are redefining what's possible with project management, cost management, and the overall delivery of these complex construction projects. To help us navigate this transformation with a fresh perspective, I'm joined by three incredible leaders today at the forefront of this revolution. Chris Thompson, Senior Vice President of Innovation and Product over at Cumming Group. Kris Lengieza, the Global Technology Evangelist over at Procore. Thank you. And Dareen Salama, Co-founder and CEO over at Grips. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So, big picture. Let's start there. Seems like the easiest spot to start. The construction industry, like we've mentioned off camera before this, and just even in this intro, right? It is transforming. There's no other way to say that. What is working right now and just what isn't?
Well, I'll jump right in. And I think there's a lot of things that are going really well in the construction industry right now, especially when it comes to how we're starting to embrace a lot of digital tools. I think the really important thing to know is we've been on this journey of digital transformation in the construction industry for probably about the last 10 years, and we've made a lot of progress. We've done a lot of implementation of systems. We've done a lot of good work around building. The industry has built new tools to solve some of the biggest problems that we have. And we've done a really good job at digitizing. I think we still have a little bit of way to go on the actual transformation process and how we adopt and enable our employees to use those technologies to the fullest of their abilities. But we've made really great strides at really tackling some big challenges that we've had in the industry for quite some time.
I think to add to that, there's two things that have happened along with that. Number one is that the tools that Chris is describing have matured and really reached a point where they're far more useful. That's one of the areas of focus for us, is actually useful things. Mm-hmm. And I would say in the last 18 to 24 months, there's also been the proliferation of choice. There are multiple options now for many of those tools that we can integrate as part of our ecosystem. And also, I think the professionals in the workforce has changed. People are much more adaptive and embracing of different ways that they can still leverage their expertise in what they deliver.
And I'll add, basically, when I first started my career, we were implementing, that was 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. We were still in the age of, like Chris mentioned, the digital transformation, digitizing. And at the time, it was every software product, every technology would take a long time for you to see results. And I think a lot of people were tainted by that, and that slowed adoption as well. But I think in the past 2 years, seeing the rise of AI, I think that there's a very clear shift of I can see value quickly, I can go beyond the pilot quickly, the technology is there. The consumer products are there, so people are trying similar technology in their personal lives before they are starting it in the office. So they're seeing what's possible. I think the current gap right now is really between the technology and the use cases. and people understanding the capability of that tool and being able to try it. And I actually think the pandemic also allowed for faster adoption of cloud that got people ready to adopt AI. If that shift hasn't happened, we may have been in a world where people are still resisting cloud systems in a sense, which would have hindered a lot of what we can do today.
Yeah, I've said this before, and I'll say it again confidently. The pandemic could have been one of the best things that happened to the construction industry.
There's always a time to find a silver lining.
I mean, I want to double down on one other thing you said, which is the generational change that we're seeing, I think is really important. You talked about people using these technologies in their personal lives.
Mm-hmm.
We no longer have this group that are coming into the industry that have never used a tablet before. They've never used a mobile device. And not to say that they're, at this point, everybody's using it in their personal life. So it doesn't feel so foreign. They don't have to learn to use the technology and the tool. They just have to kind of learn to use the tool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you guys have touched, my next question to you all, I think you've kind of touched on, but how have these attitudes changed, particular with owners, project stakeholders? How is that, the attitudes and the technology enablement, how is that reshaping how these projects are delivered?
Well, like I mentioned, we see technology as part of the ecosystem that we use to deliver experience and expertise to clients. And years ago, those tools were not at a maturity point where clients were actively looking for them or expecting them to be present in the way that we delivered our service. And I think if I fast forward to today and looking down the road, I think it's almost table stakes that when we come to the table, we're always bringing relevant experience, the right professionals, but also what are we going to use to enable our approach? I think more clients are specifically asking for that, whereas before it might have been viewed kind of like Teams was in before the pandemic. Is that really necessary? Is it a bell or whistle? And now it's really essential and at the core of how we deliver expertise and how we get good outcomes on projects.
Right.
I still remember days of putting together proposals to chase projects where you had a sheet in there about what was the project management system you were using, and that was the differentiator for you, right? Those days are gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has one at this point, and now I find owners more and more deeply caring about what it is, or they want to have it themselves because they see so much value in both the data that they get, the fact that they're able to enforce processes, right? And really drive quality. And we recently did a research project on this, and we found that owners are a huge beneficiary of construction management technology.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 90% of owners reported, those who have highly adopted the technology that they have reported that they are able to perform more work, up to 20% more work with the staff that they have. And 88% of them have said that they have improved the quality of their projects when they have construction management solutions in place that are highly adopted. And that adopted part is a really important piece, I think, as well.
As we qualify and vet new tools to add to our stack, and we're pretty conservative about how we do that, one of the first things that we ask our team members is, did this save you time?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing that we ask is, if it saved you time, what were you able to do with that time? And it's almost always, I'm able to spend less time searching for information and more time applying that information and analysis and expertise. Yeah. And so there's this big uplift in outcomes. You can do a direct tie, and you probably have the stats behind it, Kris.
Yeah, not to stat bomb, but
right.
It's
you are the stat.
I'm the stat guy. I'm kind of the data nerd, right? 18% of time on a job site is just spent looking for information.
Mm-hmm.
I usually use a different word, but we're recorded, so I'll keep it PC.
Thank
but it is it's mind-boggling sometimes when you think about how much time we waste just trying to find the things that we need in order to do our job. And we were talking about this earlier. When we can shift, let's say that you're spending 75% of your time looking for what you need to make a decision and 25% of your time making the decision. When we can flip that paradigm and say, hey, spend 25% of your time looking for the information and 75% of your time evaluating and deciding what the right decision is, that will change project outcomes.
Yes.
And I think back to kind of mentioning on what owners care about, right? In the past, they started kind of specifying you should use a software, you should use a PMIS, all that, right? Now, the value of data is much clearer than it was before.
Yes.
In the past, owners would say, I don't need to do that. The contractor will do it. It's in the contractor's scope. The architect will do that. But now there's a lot more appreciation that if I have that data, it's not what am I going to do with it? It is that the data is my business.
And so that's what I wanted to ask. What is behind this shift in the owners who traditionally in our world are a little more hands off? Why are they jumping in more? What is causing that shift from a technology standpoint?
Well, owners have just as much at risk on projects as any contractor that's working on them, right? There's reputational risk, there's financial risk, there's potential downstream, revenue risks for them. And they are starting to realize that when they can take control of processes and drive consistency, especially if they build a lot, if they have a large portfolio where they're doing a lot of projects, they have a process they want to see happen on every single project, and they can work with their partners to develop that on the first one and then enforce it. And then we always talk about this. The cost of building a project is only a small portion of the life cycle of that project. 80% of it happens afterwards. And there's so much data and information that is so rich and so valuable that can be captured during the construction process that can either inform the next project or inform the operations of that they care, right? They're going to these performance specifications of, hey, here's what I expect you to deliver on the data side, not just, hey, you must have a project management system. You must deliver these data points to me at the end of the project as well.
Not just that, it is that there is fundamental shifts in how they're doing, like they could have shifts in their business, right? So one thing is we work with a lot of universities. Your universities were under a lot of budget pressure this year and starting the year before. And now they're starting to think, how can I do things more efficiently? Not that they didn't before, but there is a shift. And AI gave is there a way to make things more efficient with AI? If there is, then I want to do it now. So there is a level of urgency. And then come take it on the other areas. You have infrastructure, right? So America has aging infrastructure. It needs to be replaced. We need to figure out how to replace it, how to prioritize the spending. So there's a lot of pressures in how the business is done that now it needs that efficiency. And then I'll say the third piece is that literally the industry always loses talented people to other industries because they are higher paid, they are better job conditions, remote work, all of these different perks, all different kinds of things that you want to retain talent. And how can you retain talent if you're not advancing and utilize, like if your job is to do data entry, you're not going to even do that job anymore. And companies need to evolve, and owners are included in that mix.
Well, and I wanted to talk about that too with this, to bring in the elephant, let's just bring it in, right? Displacement and the change in job roles. It's happening, but what does that transformation look like? Because I wouldn't say it's necessarily displacement, more of a transformation and a shift in what we need.
There isn't yet a button push that I'm aware of that replaces key workflows and key expertise in what we do.
There is. We just haven't told you yet.
Okay.
We didn't want you to get upset.
We're going to talk about that after. So for now, it's about using tools, whether it's AI enabled or otherwise, as a force multiplier. What we were alluding to earlier, that saving time looking for information, leveraging that information, spending more time on analysis and critical thinking and focusing on better outcomes. That's really the way that we see things. We refer to it as powering our experts. Yeah. We don't really see the displacement. Can it make teams more efficient? Certainly, but it just means that they're more focused on what matters and delivering value and delivering good outcomes.
So is it more of like evolving?
It's definitely evolving, and I think of it less as people displacement and more as task displacement.
Okay.
There are certain things that we do that candidly, hopefully we won't have to do for very much longer, right? We were discussing preparing reports prior to this, right? Why do I have to spend a few hours just going and downloading things and collecting documentation so that I can go and put together my monthly project status report.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would much rather be able to click a button, and I think everyone would agree, and nobody else wants to like have to do that task anymore either. So like those are things that are going to go away. And what that means is, okay, so what does that person now do with that time that they're freed up with?
Right.
Maybe it's more analysis. Maybe it's we need a little bit less of that type of person. But hey, who's going to go and actually build the things that are going to automate these processes, right? You need the expertise in the workflow. You need the expertise in the technology to go do that. That's going to be an opportunity for somebody who wants to do that. And so like, no human was displaced here, but maybe a new role gets created, right? And we have a little bit of less of this and a little bit more of that. And let's be honest, we don't have enough people as it is.
Right.
So like we got a long way to go of optimization and productivity.
There's room for everyone.
So yeah, come on. Like, but that's a great comment, because now we get into fun, exciting technologies that people will be like, oh, I would do that. Like, I know that technology. This is a fun industry to go work in, and we can change the narrative about construction and working in this space and bring in some really, really great talent.
I was gonna say, and not to stereotype, but the need for this younger generation with their fluency in technology is going to be key.
100%.
If you passed as prologue sometimes, and if you think about when perhaps the typewriter was invented, or then the computer,
We're going there.
and
Okay.
then mobile devices, probably people were asking some of the same questions, but in a different context. Well, now that the typewriters created, what does that displace? And I think it goes to what you said, Chris. It just means that that professional is needed to do a different task or to do a different role.
I think one of my favorite examples of this that I've heard is telephone operators. Right? When they kind of created digital telephones and you didn't need operators to route calls anymore, what happened to all of them? Well, that's where a lot of new roles actually came about, whether that was administrative assistants, like things that like were new skills that people learned and created new job opportunities for those people that were displaced potentially out of those roles. And I think we'll see some of that as well. We'd be completely remiss to say that it's all going to look the same and you're all going to keep doing the same job that you are doing today over the next 5 years. That's not reality. But to think that people are going to be displaced and not have other opportunities to jump on, and those who are, I think, optimistic and are forward-looking will jump on them early.
Now, you could even move ahead to the development of spreadsheets even before their current incarnation. And again, the same thoughts and the same process would come to mind, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
So on that note, Chris, when we're talking about where we are now with this proactive approach and being able to utilize that data in that way, can you guys give us some concrete examples of what this proactive approach really looks like in practice today on these projects?
We talked a moment ago about preparing for the monthly report or the monthly budget update. I'm remembering putting together monthly budget updates, and that you had to look ahead to it by almost the full month. And certainly that last week was a very heads down time when you had to try to turn away other things and really focus on getting that report updated. Now it's real-time information. That itself is not necessarily new, but it powers so much. We were talking about, what does this do for clients? Clients can rest easy knowing the full health and status of their program or project by looking at a dashboard.
Anytime.
Near real-time information, if not absolutely real-time. The moment something happens in the field or during the pre-construction phase, you issue a cost event, or you update correspondence, or you take whatever action is needed to get that in the documentation and in the history, but in your ecosystem, and it's immediately visible and aggregated. It's amazingly powerful.
I can give you like countless examples, but I'll pick a few. So one very clear one is reviewing. It's almost like for owners, project managers, and owners reps. A lot of the work is reviewing work that is provided to you, whether in the field or on paper, or information that is provided, right? So Invoice review is a big one, and there's different types of invoices. There's pay applications, there's design, there's construction, there's, consultant invoices, there's timesheets attached. There's a lot of documentation that the owner is receiving from multiple systems. It's not in one place. So one is that review of these documents, right? Are there lien waivers? Are there no lien waivers? Or is it really signed? Is it notarized? All the different requirements that are there. Is the math correct? All of that. A second one is even more further than that, is for one of the city agencies. They're looking at inspectors who are going to go to inspect different routes, optimize their routes so they don't have to go to a place that's far from where they live, or they can go faster, or they can cover more grounds in a shorter time. And the other one that was big, now it's very easy, is the asset lists. So in the BIM world, we always dreamed of providing an asset digital twin, an asset list with all of its different components and all the different metrics of each asset back to the owner. And that was a very onerous task. Go find the O&M manuals and go find the documents that relate to this transformer
In the 3-ring
or
binder.
this elevator. Yeah, and exactly. And those still exist. So but we're not going to talk about those.
Don't forget six copies. Six copies.
I was just thinking of our old office, and I was like, oh my God, the number of 3-ring binders.
Now
You had to provide a copy on CD-ROM as well.
Yes,
It was
that too.
something
That
to
too. So that was a really hard task that would take very long, and in some cases would slow down your commissioning of the building, your testing of the building. Now that's done a lot faster. So and I think that owners are even asking for more. These things are like, okay, I expect that now. What's next?
I love, those are such good examples of a lot of the things that I think are driving significant productivity. But I'm going to go just a little bit further out in the future. So I'm going to push us a little bit. I think when we really start thinking about being more proactive than we are today, I think we have to start talking about what elevation or altitude we're working at, right? We need to be able to look at things from a higher level and get insights about what might happen, right? These are things tasks that have to be done. We can automate those tasks. It's going to save people time. It's going to allow them to go and be more proactive. But there are also things in the technology that'll allow it to be more proactive on our behalf, right? For example, right, we can spot a trend about the increase in price of a certain material that we're about to buy out on 5 or 6 projects, right? Or should we change that material to something else, right? Should we look at an alternative? Or, hey, we've actually seen a spike in warranty claims against this specific roofing material. How often do we get this one, right? Do we really want to keep that specified on these next 5 projects? And you see that I'm looking a lot at the beginning of the project, but that's on purpose because I think that's a place where we have a lot of proactive decisions can be made that will impact the quality, the delivery, the cost of a project very, very early on. And I think that stuff is not too far away. I think some of it's happening already. And I think we'll see even more of that once we get more comfortable with the data that we have.
And so I'm going to pause us there on the efficiencies and kind of how we're being proactive in the moment right now. And then on part 2, I want to pick up about these measurable improvements with the quality, the timeline, budgets, performance, everything you guys have touched on during this first part. So let's pause here, and then we'll pick back up with part 2 and get into that and get into those details, get in the weeds a little bit more. So stay tuned.
Check back in a few weeks as we continue our deep dive into AI and tech enablement with insights from Chris Thompson, Kris Lengieza, and Dareen Salama. And don't forget to subscribe to the Construction Insiders podcast so you never miss a new episode.